Welcome back to the Full Force Fathers podcast. Alongside my co-host Dave, I am Brett. We're so glad to have you here today. Episode number 32, Dave. How the hell are you doing today?
I am doing great. As you can see, I am not in my normal studio at home with the bed behind me. I am in Austin, Texas right now, so I was troubleshooting some technical stuff. So if I don't sound the same and maybe I don't look the same, hopefully it's just because of that.
Well, all I'm going to say is that you've upgraded. If you're watching us on YouTube, Dave is in a hotel room. I mean, he went from spare bedroom to Hampton Inn. I mean, that's an upgrade if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, good old Hampton Inn, Diamond Club member here at the Hampton Inn. So I got upgraded to a suite, which ended up working out perfect for this week because I needed a little extra space for this. But my guest room at home, I got booted out of the office too. Casey started her new job working from home, so I am an orphan in the world of podcasting at this point.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I mean, I think you have some news too to talk about, right? You got some big news on your plate?
I got some big news, but I don't know if I'm quite ready to share yet. So we're gonna leave that one for a couple weeks.
All right, well, let's leave that one for a couple of weeks. That's just your teaser, guys, that listen to the show. Dave's got some big news, probably not till next week or the following week. But I do have one question for you because you do travel a lot. You're in a hotel. You fly a lot. Two questions. How many flights have you been on in the last week? That's the first part. And the second part of this question is, do you like traveling, dislike traveling, enjoy it? Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll start with how many flights last week, because this was prominent in my mind yesterday. I was on 5 flights in the last 8 days, and I am super tired. That's a lot of flights. Not all direct flights either. It was sitting in airports, a lot of time spent in airports and on airplanes. So it was a tough week. And it depends on when you ask me if I like traveling. And had you asked me 7 weeks ago, as I started into the season, I would have said, yeah, traveling's great, not a problem at all. But by this point, every little thing that anyone does irritates the shit out of me, to the point at which I'm texting you usually from the airplane being like, you can't believe what this fucking idiot did.
No,
Get smacked with bags and people sitting in the wrong seats. It's just, goddamn, it's miserable.
The best text that I received from you the other day was, it's
drinks
amazing how many people drink at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Those people had already been astonishing to me in general. But it's weird. It's like when people. Yeah, dude, I was at the Tucson airport and there were people slamming drinks before 9. I mean, I tell traveling, like everything else just goes out the window. All the things that they know they probably should or shouldn't do with their day, but who knows? Maybe they drink at that time at home too.
I know. I despise travel. I don't like to fly. I'd much rather drive. Hence, we have an RV when we go on trips. I'd much rather do that than fly. I don't drink either. You guys know that, but that's one time you want to make me have a cocktail. If I was going to do it, flying would be a time because I am one of those guys that sits in the plane and I'm gripping the seat or I'm gripping Andine's arm so hard she's ready to smack me. I don't do it. I don't enjoy it. I don't know how you do it. I tell you that all the time. But
last week, I was coming back from Austin. I was lucky enough to be able to get back on a Saturday night, which doesn't always happen. So I was sitting in the Austin airport waiting for my flight. My flight coming in was a little bit delayed, so I knew I was going to be a little delayed. And I had a tight turnover in Phoenix of like an hour. But I was like, it'll be fine. If they're 15, 20 minutes late, no problem. I'll be able to get to the gate in Phoenix without an issue. And I'm standing there, and I'm looking out the window. And all of a sudden, I see this parade of cars, this motorcade going by. I was like, what the hell is that, right? So I look on my phone to try and figure out what it is. The vice president was tying up the tarmac. She tied it up for an hour in Austin.
Oh my God.
And I missed my connection flight in Phoenix because of her. So I was completely irritated. So by the time I finally got on my flight in Austin. They had upgraded me to first class, which was fun. I enjoy the upgrade. So that's one perk to traveling all the time is you usually get some status and things like that on airlines and on hotels. So you get some perks that are really meaningless, but in the moment they feel good, right? So I'm sitting in first class. I get in. I'm on the phone with Casey trying to tell her what's going on because her and I had a trip that we had to be out the door on Sunday morning for. So that was the rush to get back on Saturday night. Normally it's not a big deal, but I needed to be back because I had another morning flight back out of Phoenix the next day. So I get on the plane, and we had the coolest stewardess ever. Like most of them are, I don't know. They're not as nice as this person. She was great. And she saw me. She could tell I was having a day, and she kind of looked at me. She looked over. She's like, she points to me. She goes, like, what do you want to drink? And I was like, beer. She's like, which one? I'm like, anyone. And she brought one over, and I was like, this is good. Now this is service. So that's one of the little perks to traveling. But yeah, our illustrious vice president fucked up my travel last Saturday, and it really irritated me. But you know what? I'm sure she got home on time, which is all that really matters.
Oh, congratulations. That is just such a bummer. And that's one of the reasons why I hate to fly, because there's never – I think I fly so little that the percentages always work against me, that something's going to get screwed up on a flight or delayed flight or miss a flight. It's almost a guarantee where I have the percentages are not stacked against you when you drive across the country or whatnot. But it is what it is. I'd much rather get there on my clock and my time and control what I can control versus, sitting in an airplane on the tarmac for 2 hours because they need to switch a fucking windshield wiper when it wasn't even sunny, when it wasn't even raining out.
Yeah, those are the best. I will say though, when you're traveling without kids, it makes it so much easier. I'm sure that seems like, it's obvious, right? But like Casey and I when we were traveling back from our trip, we saw these parents in the airport with their kids, and we were laughing coming up to the escalator, and we're like, how many times when you're on the escalator, don't touch the handrails, watch out, make sure you step. Don't let it trip you up. Don't get caught in the thing, right? It's like all the things you have to say to your kids traveling through the airport. And sure enough, this family comes on right in the escalator next to us. And they're like, don't touch the handrails. Watch your step. Don't go up and down the escalator. I was like, thank God that's not us right now.
Oh, yeah, dude. Kids in planes, they touch everything. They, as you know, and Nandine, my wife well, she is a complete neurotic nut job when it comes to those things. So when I travel with my wife, it's especially on the airplanes. It is not a fun time for me.
Yeah, what I found this. They have these cool suitcases for kids now. They almost look like a saxophone case, and you can sit on it. So the suitcase, if you can imagine it, it's like a normal wide suitcase, and then it's got like a piece that comes up in the front, and you can ride and hang on to it. So the parents can pull the suitcase, and the kids can just ride on. I was like, that's pretty sweet.
Someone thought of an invention somewhere that
was a great idea. I wish it was me, but
making millions of dollars somewhere.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. So as you can tell on YouTube, Dave's in a hotel room. So episode 32, we're so glad you're here. Thank you. I can't believe it. 8 months we've been going strong here, which is amazing. As always, we're going to start off with a Bible verse right now. This comes from Proverbs 4, chapter 4, verse 1. It's right at the start of Proverbs 4. Listen, my sons, to a father's instruction. Pay attention and gain understanding. So it's very short, very sweet. Listen, my sons, to a father's instruction. Pay attention and gain understanding. And we're full force fathers here. This is what we do. We're dads. I know it says listen, my sons, but it could be listen, my daughters. You could fill in the blank there. It could be listen, Caroline. Anything with your kids. Listen to your father and gain wisdom and understanding, gain knowledge. And it's so fitting for us as full force fathers. That's what we do. You and I both look up to our fathers, and we've learned so much from them. And that's what we're trying to do for our kids. We're trying to pass on that knowledge and wisdom to our kids. So we want them to constantly look up to us, and we're trying to be the example, be the standard for our kids. So that's today's Bible verse. Any comments on that, Dave? Or you think I hit it well?
You nailed that one.
Okay. So as always, tradition, famous number 32s. Now, I'm not going to go crazy with this. This is going to take us a while because, as you know, Dave and I are both sports nuts. Dave texted me when he was putting show notes in. He goes, I cannot believe the number 32s that we have on the list. So I said to myself, let me look in there and look at it. And I was looking at it. He was looking at it, and he's 100% accurate. This may be, if there was a list, and let's just make playoffs, for example. or a Final Four. If you picked a number, this is a number one seed in March Madness. This is the number one seed in the NFL playoffs. This number 32 is insanely stacked.
Yeah, it's really, really good. Like when I went through when I was going through and putting the notes in today, like I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, right. Wow. It's a Hall of Fame list. Literally a Hall of Fame list.
I know it's mostly basketball because 32 is a popular number of basketball, but baseball, there's other sports where 32, but it is for sure a basketball number. So go ahead and kick us off with the list with the big ones. I know you have a few stories you want to talk about. I want to talk about a few things on a couple of these. So I'll let you start off the conversation on the famous number 32s.
All right. So we've got Magic Johnson. He's the one that stands out to me. Is probably arguably the best 32 all time. He's right there. Then on the football side, you got Jim Brown. Jim Brown on there. Shaquille O'Neal, who I was a huge fan of his as when he was with the Orlando Magic. Him and Penny, man, that team was awesome. I wish they had won a championship. Julius Erving, like, good God, dude, we're 4 in. Why don't you pick up the list from there?
Oh man, the mailman, Karl Malone. Sandy Koufax. Let's go baseball. Let's go baseball again with Dave Winfield, great hitter. We go to football and we got Marcus Allen. We have O.J. Simpson. I mean, this list is mind-blowing, the amount of people. Richard Hamilton, for you Connecticut people like Dave and I, Richard Rip. I mean, how important is that one to us? Bill Walton. I mean, there's so many on here. And you have a funny story because if those of you that listen to the show, Dave worked for ESPN for a lot of years. So Dave has met a lot of famous athletes. And he's always got stories about athletes. This one's a dick. This one's cool. This guy's okay. This one wants me to do that. So you got any funny stories on any of these guys? Have you met any of these guys?
I met a couple of them. I had the pleasure to work with and meet Magic Johnson, who was awesome. He did some work for us. He came in on Mike and Mike a lot, and that's where I really got a chance to work with him. I was directing Mike and Mike on their TV side, and he came in, and him and Golick had a bet. I forget exactly what the bet was, but Magic won, and he got to put a pie in the face of Golick. And it was a big shtick on the show, and this big thing we planned out, and we walked through it with him. This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to do. And it was one of the highlights of my directing time. I loved it. It was just Magic Johnson just smashing a pie right in the face of Mike Golick. Greeny was there and Golick Jr. And I mean, they were just hammering Golick with pies. And that was one of the fun ones. He signed a book. He did a book signing there. So I got a book signed by Magic, and he's truly just one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. He was fantastic. And then, back in my early days, when I was a stage manager, I used to work in the studio, and as a stage manager, basically you were attending to talent, you were attending to the studio operators, what people needed, making sure people were in the right places, making sure talent was good, they had all the things they needed. And Bill Walton came in for our NBA coverage, and I had just kind of started in this role, so I was new and I wasn't quite sure what I was supposed to be doing. And we had this weird desk, and most of the time people like sit behind desks and you can't see their legs or anything. But on this desk, it was a pedestal. So it was just like a pedestal in the middle and then a big round top that the guys would sit around. So Bill came in, and he had bad knees. He's such a big guy, years in the NBA, just pounding on his legs. He had terrible knees. So he hated getting up and getting down. So once he'd sit, he just kind of wanted to be able to sit. But he loved chewing gum. Like, that was his thing. He used to always love chewing gum. So when we were going to go on air, you couldn't have gum in your mouth, right? So Bill said, he's like, "Who's the stage manager around?" He used to yell like this, "Who's the stage manager around here?" So I'd come over and, "Hey, Bill, it's Dave. Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you too. I'm going to need a trash can." "Okay. You can't have a trash can back here because of the set." He goes, "No, but I need a trash can. I've got gum that I've got to spit out." It's like, "Okay, Bill. Well, how about this? How about if I bring you the trash can before each segment, and you can spit your gum in the trash can, and then we'll move on." So, okay, that's fine. So I get busy in the studio doing something else, and we'd be a few minutes out. The director would get in his ear and be like, "All right, I got such and such amount of time to air." And all of a sudden, I hear Bill from across the studio, "Dave, "Where's my trash can?" He screamed. So I go and I get his trash can and I run it over to him. And he wasn't being a jerk or anything like that. Bill was a great guy. It was just one of those things. He had a hard time getting up, getting down. So it's like, this guy here, he's going to bring my trash can. So I was the trash can guy to Bill Walton for a season on NBA Countdown.
That looks good on your resume. Trash can for Bill Walton.
Trash can guy for Bill Walton. But he is a funny guy. Both of those guys were awesome. So yeah, a couple good memories from them.
He's a true Pacific Northwest hippie. That guy. From everything you listen to him talk when he still calls games now. I mean, he is such a hippie.
Yeah, we listen to him every once in a while when he calls Arizona games out here, and he is like on another planet, man. I swear, I don't know what he's got in his system, but he is a different breed.
I think he rivals Stephen A. for vocabulary. Those guys just come up with the stupidest words of all time, whether they're real or not, to put on TV. It is tremendous.
Totally believable.
Yeah. No, when I look at this list, there's two names, Shaq and Richard Hamilton. Now, Shaq's a kind of a touchy subject because Shaq wore 32 with the Magic, but his best years as a Laker, he wore 34. So Shaq's going to be on this list more than once. He's going to be on this list now, so we'll talk about it now.
And he was actually 33 in Phoenix when he wrapped up.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he was 36 with the Celtics when he went to Boston. Everyone forgets he went to Boston.
Yeah.
And when he was with the Miami Heat, he went back. So he was 32, went to 34 at the Lakers, went back to 32 when he won his championship with the Heat in Dwayne Wade's first title year. So 32, he's got the most titles with 34, but 32, he's got a ring. So Shaq, to me, Bill Walton, obviously way ahead of our time in Magic. Magic's great, all-timer. Everything you've seen, I've only watched him, in video because we were little when Magic Johnson was, pretty much wrapping up. All right, right before Jordan took off and went nuts and dominated the league until Shaq and Kobe came along. Because let's be honest, there was eras. There was the Celtics and the Lakers era. Then there was the Jordan era. You can throw in Olajuwon's 2 titles when Jordan took his break. But after that, post 90, what was Jordan's last title? 97 or 96?
It was 97.
Okay, so whenever Jordan's, when he beat Malone and he beat the Jazz, then there was kind of that 3-year span. There was the lockout. The Spurs won a title. And then the Shaq and Kobe team just went nuts, and they were the best team in the NBA for 5 to 6 years. It was hands down, not even close. So Shaq, to me, I used to love watching Shaq as a Laker. He was awesome when he was with Penny Hardaway and the Magic. Then he went to the Lakers and him and Kobe and all those great teams and the great rivalries they have with the Sacramentos of the world and the Portland Trailblazers of the world. But Shaq was it. He changed the game. From Hack-a-Shaq to you name it. The center's coming back around again when it was starting to become a very guard-driven league. He was the most dominant, unstoppable player in the league. All you could literally do was foul him. He couldn't make foul shots. Imagine he could make foul shots.
Yeah, you couldn't stop him. He was literally unstoppable in the game. He did what he wanted when he wanted to do it, and that was that. And dude, his time when he was in Orlando, that's Orlando became a franchise. I started rooting for them when they had Shaq and Penny, and that's when I really got into the NBA. I was never really a Celtics fan or Knicks fan, like up in New England. It really wasn't my thing. But when those two guys showed up in Orlando, man, I was like, this is awesome. And it was fun to watch. They had Nick Anderson and Dennis Scott. They had such a great team, and Jordan broke my heart. Olajuwon broke my heart. Like, teams broke my heart. But Shaq was so much fun on the Magic when he came out of college. Like, he just dominated.
Yeah, when Shaq came out of LSU, and then he was good, and then he actually beat Jordan 1 year in the playoffs. So I think it was Jordan's return year when he came back wearing the 4-5. That's when they lost, and then they ended up losing to Olajuwon in the finals. And, those Rockets teams. That was a good Rockets team too, with Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler and Robert Horry, and who was the guard? Was it Kenny Smith?
Kenny Smith on
that team?
Jet.
Yeah, Kenny the Jet. I mean, those were good Rockets teams. It's kind of a shame that they never played the next 3 years after that. They never made it back to the finals to play the Bulls with Olajuwon. But either ways, this is the talk about Shaq. Shaq was the most dominant player. He changed the game. He's the most dominant player of our lifetime. No center that has come has been even close to him. And no center even plays like him really anymore. There's some great centers in the league right now, but none play like Shaq. Everything was a dunk, a layup, a rebound, or he got hacked. You never had to worry about him shooting a jump shot like all these 7-footers want to shoot threes and all the other BS that they play now. listen, the guy dominated, controlled the paint. I mean, who the hell? Listen, Hack-a-Shaq. You literally would just go out there and follow the guy to put him at the free throw line because you were so scared because he was going to score. You just followed him before he even touched the ball to make him shoot free throws. Yeah. Literally, I remember the ball getting inbounded and someone would go over and whack him. And the refs knew it was coming. It was Hack-a-Shaq. Yeah. So Shaq really sticks out to me, and I really loved, him and Kobe. Obviously, whatever happened with those guys together is what it is. But I love those Lakers teams. They never should have lost to the Pistons, which segues into Richard Hamilton's NBA championship years with the Pistons. He is the one for you and I that stands out the most. Rip Hamilton. He brought UConn. Listen, UConn was already on the map when he got there, but he was the best player in the country that year. I know Elton Brand and everyone else won all the freaking awards. He won the most outstanding player of the Final Four that year. He scored 27 points in the championship game against Duke. People don't even realize how good that Duke team was with Elton Brand and Will Avery and Trajan Langdon. That team was, they were riding. This is one of the stats that everyone forgets about. There's two things I'll never forget. Khalid Al-Amin saying we shocked the world, and I'll never forget the final score, 77-74. In St. Petersburg, Tampa St. Pete, the game was played where the Rays used to play at, or they may still play there now. I think it was the first, if I'm not mistaken, it was the first NCAA tournament championship game that was played in a non-basketball facility. Now every game is played in a freaking football stadium. But 77-74, and the biggest thing that everyone forgets about is that UConn team only lost 2 times that year. They beat Duke. Duke came into that game riding a 32-game winning streak. Everyone forgets that. They hadn't lost all year long. They finished with 37 wins that year. They had a 32-game winning streak coming in that national championship game. We were such huge underdogs. It wasn't even funny. And we just, listen, the Alaskan assassin, I'll never forget Trajan Langdon. Dude, sorry, the best 2 guard on the floor in that game was Richard Hamilton, and it wasn't even close. It was not even close to compare. And like I said, man, that game, I'll never, one of the best memories I've had of that game, me and my brother were over at my best friend growing up, Tony's house. We were watching the game. It was me and him and his dad, and everyone was surrounded by the TV. And we were, 1999. So we were in 7th grade. 7th grade? I think 7th grade. And after we won the national championship, and I'm pretty sure Trajan Langdon just flung some half-court shot up at the buzzer, and it didn't go in. And we went screaming. We jumped in the back of Mr. Slennel's pickup truck, and he drove us around the neighborhood. And we were all 13, 14-year-old boys sitting in the back of the truck with our shirts off in fucking March, screaming, we're the champions, we're the best. Dude, that was one of my greatest sports memories of all time is watching them. Because that was the start of it, man. That was the start of Jim Calhoun was already a great coach before that, and he had some great teams before that with Ray Allen and Tate George and those teams, Daron Sheffer. But that team was the breakthrough to all the success because from 99 until like Kemba, I think Kemba, who won? Oh, Shabazz won the last national championship, whenever that was. Was that 13?
Yeah. They
were the only team to win 4 national championships in that span.
Mm-hmm.
They had won the most titles. Yeah. I think it was a 13-year span. They had 4 titles. I mean, that's unheard of, and to beat Coach K, to beat Duke, number one, is just the most important thing because we hated Duke. And I still, to this day, Coach K is great all-time coach, but I couldn't stand Duke.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, as you were talking about it actually brought back. I had goosebumps while you were talking about it. It's such a great memory. And forget about Rip Hamilton remember when he hit that little fadeaway at the buzzer to beat Washington too?
Yeah, in the lane.
I mean, he was so good at UConn, and to win that first title, be a part of that team with Khalid and Ricky Moore, Jake Voskuhl, Kevin Freeman, that team was fucking great. And it did. It brought back goosebumps, and it did. It opened the floodgates, and I think it solidified Calhoun as one of the greatest coaches of all time, and cemented UConn as a true powerhouse in college basketball. And God, I hope we can get back there someday because, man, those times were a lot of fun.
Yeah, and he's got 4. I know the last title wasn't his. It was his, but it wasn't his.
It was his. It was his team.
It was his entire team. Kevin Ollie was the coach, but that was Jim's team. And you stack him up against all the other great coaches. I think Jim Boeheim only has 1 national championship. He's going to go down as the most winningest coach because he's going to coach until he dies. But Coach K I think has 5 or 6. Jim's got 4. I mean, he's up there. Obviously nobody's John Wooden, but he's up there. But to continue on Rip, no one forgets, Rip had a great NBA career too. He was for a skinny, smaller two guard, he was scrappy. He could shoot the ball. He was great mid-range. He got in the paint, and, to win it, he won a title. And the biggest upset I still say I've ever seen in the NBA, in the NBA Finals history, was that Pistons team with Rip and Chauncey and Ben Wallace beating Shaq. He also made it to another title. They lost, I think, in 7 games or maybe 5 games to the Spurs the following year. They went back again. And then that was before LeBron came in, right before LeBron took over as the king of the East with the Cavaliers and all that stuff. But, yeah, no, we rambled on a lot. But 32 is, how can you not? We didn't even talk about, O.J. Simpson and Mark. I mean, all these other great number 32s. We just kind of highlighted a couple of them. And there's probably more on that list that we missed. But, we got to get on with the show, so we can't just sit and talk about number 32s all day.
We haven't started yet.
Yeah, I know. Listen, this is fun. These are the types of shows that I like, where we got some things we want to talk about, but hey, let's let it run with some of the sports stuff. I know we're connecting with a lot of dads when we talk about sports, especially dads our age in our mid to late 30s that grew up the same generation as us. All these names and stuff that we're saying. I mean, this is connecting with a lot of people besides just memories of you and I. So. But anyways, to get into so essentially what we want to do in episode 32 is, because last week, if you guys listened to episode 31, I said this may end up being a 2-parter. Well, it was a 1-parter. It could have easily been a 2-parter because last week was over an hour long. We try not to go that long because attention span is difficult, especially for myself. But we wanted to continue. There was a couple other topics. If you listened last week, we did our favorite 5, books and quotes and social media influencers and things like that. So we wanted to continue on that topic and kind of close that out, because we love doing shows like that where we have favorite this, favorite that. We do them for the seasons and for the holidays and stuff. So the extension is, and the first one I wanted to talk about today and continue on from last week's conversation, is podcasts. Podcasts are so influential in my life because I exercise so much. And most of the time I exercise at 4 o'clock in the morning when everyone's still sleeping, 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning. So I tend to have my headphones in my ears a lot, listening to podcasts. So I wanted to add to that list, to continue on that list from last week, and I wanted to go with our favorite podcasts that we listen to. So let's start right there, kind of pick up where we left off. Dave, jump into favorite podcasts. We're going to have a couple similar ones. Once again, we're going to try not to do doubles. So if you say one that's on my list that you put your notes in earlier than me, then I'll bypass that one. But what do you got? 3, 4, 5 podcasts that you really listen to?
I've got 3 that I check out quite regularly. The first is Real AF, Andy Frisella. We've talked about that one on the show. He's got multiple versions of his podcast within that same name, Real AF. My favorite are the long form ones where he brings in guests and interviews them and get to hear their story and how they made it and that sort of thing. So that's kind of my favorite style. He's also got something, he Cruise the Internet that he does, and he's got different ones for just kind of making you better, Q&AF, things like that. But it's all under the Real AF podcast. So I listen to that on my workouts. That's usually what I'm listening to. If I got to drive or something like that, I'll flip on the Ramsey Show. I love listening to that. It keeps me motivated with money. It keeps me excited. You get to hear stories about people that are doing great things with money too. So for me, that's another one that I tune into. Usually that's a 3-hour block because it's a 3-hour show. So it gets cut down because of commercials. But I usually flip that on when I'm in the car driving. And the other one I've learned of through Real AF, which is the Ed Milet Show. He and Andy are close. They do some work together. So I've been listening to that as well. He's got some good guests on there. Those are the main ones. And then you are the podcast guy, so I'll let you attack the list. But, when you throw me one, I'll tune into specific ones that you say are good episodes. But there's no other ones that I follow. These are the ones that I actually follow and download episodes from on the regular.
Yeah, Dave knows I am podcast listener guy. So what I do is I'll just send a screenshot of one and shoot it over to Dave. Like, you got to listen to this one. I sent him one. And then he was like, "What the fuck, Brett? That podcast was 5 hours long." I'm like, "Yeah, you got to stomach it over like three different ones." That was a Jocko podcast, and Jocko's on my list. So if you listen to Jocko's podcast, Jocko podcast is a very he's an influential guy, lieutenant commander in the SEAL teams, all that good stuff. He's a good writer. He echelon front. He's got a company. He goes in and he coaches business leaders, managers up to CEOs of companies that are looking to get better. His show it's not for everybody. And I say that with the utmost respect to Jocko, because I love it. He is his voice stays the same. He doesn't get very high, very low. He is
very dry.
Yet he's very in depth with his questions. He will not just take a question and it's not just going to be a yes or no answer. It's going to be a 15-minute answer on things. But Jocko's podcast is phenomenal. I love listening to it, especially if I'm in the mood for a little bit of motivation or whatnot, because a lot of times he's got former military guys on and whatnot. And I love listening to that stuff because those guys they paid the ultimate sacrifice to keep me safe and have a podcast of my own. So Jocko's on there. This one is funny. I mentioned Chad Wright last week as one of the social media files that I love. His podcast, the 3 of 7 podcast, once again, it can be dry. It may not be for everyone because it's a bunch of rednecks down in Georgia talking. But when Chad, and he's got a guy that works for him named Chili, who's an elite ultra runner, by the way. So he's not some bum off the street. He's an elite ultra runner. I get a lot of God talk, which I love, but I get a lot of just deep Southern humor. And the shit that Chad and Chili, when they get going on tangents and stuff, dude, you cannot help but just sit there and laugh. But he's a former SEAL, former Navy SEAL, Chad is. And you get a lot of that tactical talk, which is cool, motivational talk. Dude, he did one podcast that was just on guns, and I was like, heck yeah, dude, this is sweet, So that's another one that I like to listen to. From a fitness standpoint, the Bear Performance podcast is a good one that I tell people to listen to. His name is Nick Bear. He owns BPN, Bear Performance Nutrition, out of Austin, Texas, where you are right now. He's a young kid, started a supplement company. He was also in the military, but he doesn't talk a lot about military on his podcast. It's more motivation, health, fitness related. He's got great guests in the health fitness space. If you need to get in shape, just check him out on Instagram. Check out his page. He's got a great line of supplements. He's got a great company, and he's also a stud. He's run sub 3-hour marathons, and he also can lift weights with the best of the guys that can, claim the iron around in the gym. So that's Nick Bear, the Bear Performance Podcast. Rogan we don't even talk about Rogan. Rogan's the legend. He's the God. He's the godfather of podcasts. I don't listen to all of Rogan's stuff. Rogan's stuff can be very long, but he's, like we mentioned last week, he's the best interviewer I've ever heard in my life. He's in depth. He's calculated. He knows everything, but some of his guests are great to listen to. So I try to tune into Joe's show every once in a while on a long run or, a long workout, and depending on the guest. What else I got on my list here? And there's 2 more. If you are in the sales game, if you are in sales, whether you're in mortgages or you're in car sales or you're in, internet sales, whatever kind of sales you're in, there's a guy named Brad Lee. We've used his book before as a book recommendation. He's got the Real Brad Lee podcast and Dropping Bombs with Brad Lee. If you're looking for someone in the sales space to motivate you, to listen to help you get better at your job or just get better with people or, things like that, then Brad Lee's got a great show. He always has guests on. You very rarely hear him by himself. He does do well with guests. And every guest he has is an entrepreneur or business owner or something like that. So if you're looking for that type of stuff, he's got a lot of content, sort of like Andy in the business space. And then the last one that I put on here, if anyone knows who Steve Weatherford is, he was the punter for the Giants. He's also like the fittest man on earth. He's a good dude. He just moved. Speaking of Austin, there's a lot of Austin in this show today. He just moved to Texas too, but he was the Giants punter, and he also was like the fittest man in the NFL as a punter, like 3 years in a row. And I listened to him for faith stuff because super super biblical. He sells these jerseys like they look like the vintage Chicago Bulls jerseys or New York Knicks jerseys that say Jesus is King on them. One of these days, I don't wear jerseys, but one of these days I'll be tempted to buy one and rock one out. But he's married, 6 kids, great dude. And one little thing is he follows me on Instagram, which is pretty cool. So that gives him a little added bonus. So if you ever want to know, yeah, there is a Super Bowl champion that follows me on Instagram.
That's pretty good. Look at you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's I've made it in life now. With my Instagram followers, I have a Super Bowl champ.
Too bad he played for the Giants.
Yeah, too bad he played for the Giants. Great punter, and he also has great fitness content too. So obviously there's a theme of me: motivation, fitness, business, things like that on all the podcasts that I try to listen to. And then I also, in podcasts in general, dude, I will sometimes go to Apple and see what they suggest, and every once in a while you find one that they suggest, and it isn't half bad. So That's my list of podcasts, Dave. Let's continue on this list. The next one I wanted to put in here, role models. We talked about quotes. We talked about books and influencers. How about role models? These are people that maybe you've met personally, you have a close relationship with, people that you respect, you trust. This one doesn't have to be 5 because that's hard. It's hard to make up 5 on a list like this because how many people do you truly trust and respect? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a great question. When you put this in here for the show notes, you're like, hey, list the people that come to mind. I had a hard time with it. My list is rather short. But first and foremost is my dad. And I would think the majority of men out there probably would have their fathers on that list. I know for me, he's at the top of my list. There's nobody I trust more than my dad for, obvious reasons. He's been there through my entire life. He's always supported me. He was my biggest cheerleader when I started at ESPN. When I was a kid, all that. But when I started ESPN, he was so proud of that and so excited about the opportunities that I had and that he helped kind of provide, raising me and kind of getting me down that path. He supported me when I picked up and moved his grandkids across the country. That's a hard thing to do probably as a father, as to say goodbye to your own kid and your grandkids. So he was there, still supported us and our choices, which was incredible. He's the guy that I call for everything. If I've got a question on how to do something, he's the guy I call. If I've got good news to share, he's the guy I call. If I've got bad news to share, he's the guy I call. So he's number one on that list for great reasons. The next 2 come in no particular order. But if there's anything that I want to know about money, I go to Dave Ramsey. I listen to the Ramsey Show. Like I said, it's on my podcast. I read his books. I think that guy's got it figured out. So if there's anything I want to know about money, I trust what he says about it, to the point at which I will tell somebody to their face that they're wrong if they have a difference of opinion there. So I truly believe in that message that he shares about living a debt-free life, and that's a big one for me. So he's somebody that I respect and trust on at least on the money topic. And then the last one's you. I don't have any siblings, so you're as close to a brother as I have. So same thing. You're my next call. After I call my dad, I call you to share all that sort of information with, and good stuff, bad stuff, bounce ideas off of. We chat about everything, and quite honestly, you'll tell me the truth when I need to hear it. You don't blow smoke up my ass, and that's what I can respect. But that really is the end of my list. And I think when you have more influences in your life coming from all these different directions, like what do you really truly believe or trust? I feel like having a small list there is important. Because it really allows you to focus on the people that have your best interest in mind and aren't going to steer you wrong. And that would be my list.
Yeah, that's a good list. Obviously, we have very similar ones between you and me, and then our dads. Obviously, I didn't write you down because you wrote me down and said whatever you need to say, and it was all true. I don't blow smoke up your ass. I tell you you're being a bitch when you're being a bitch, and I thank you for the finance advice when you give me some finance advice. But we have a podcast together. You know what I mean? So obviously we must know each other pretty well. My dad is number 1 on this list. First of all, my mom and my dad together are number 1 on this list because that they conceived me. I'm only here because of them. If they weren't here, then I wouldn't be here. And that works. If my mom wasn't here and my dad wasn't here, I wouldn't be here. So that's the first thing. My dad in particular has taught me everything I need to know. He's taught me how to live. He's taught me how to be a dad. He's taught me how to do anything under the sun, kind of like your dad, right? If I need to fix something, if I'm how to be an athlete, how to be a great athlete, how to fight through, how to be blue collar when you need to be blue collar, how to hunt, how to fish, how to support. I mean, the list goes on and on and on about my dad. What hardships, how to overcome hardships. My mom and dad have both come over hardships, come through them like it's nobody's business. How to get through pain. And just everything. He's kind of like the jack of all trades, like you mentioned your dad. He's the first phone call I make in the morning. He's the first phone call that I make if something good happens, and he's the first person I call if something bad happens, like you said. If there's shit, man, it's something going on, I'm not feeling right about something. We have similar stories in the sense that he supported me when I said I'm out. If you don't know. Before I moved to Arizona in 2015, I worked for my dad full time and did for years. I worked for them from the time probably the time I could walk. I was always doing something around the yard with him, something for one of his companies, something like that, always. So when I, in 2015, told him we want to get the hell out of Dodge and move to Arizona, was he pissed? I don't know if he was ever pissed. Was he sad? Would he ever admit it? First of all, he would never admit it. But you know what? Deep down inside, I knew he was happy. He was happy for me. He supported our decision. And he supported our decision when we moved back east, and he supports my decision when it's time to move back west. That's a fact. And he's my best friend. There's no doubt about it. The next person on that list is no longer here. My brother. I still look up to my brother even though he's gone. Taught me how to be tough. He gave me the beatings that I deserved and a few that I didn't deserve. And I wish he was here because he would have been a great uncle. He would have been a great dad himself. He would have been, he would have been awesome to my kids. My wife probably would have hated him, but it is what it is. He was my original best friend, my brother. Next on my list is my cousin, and I consider my brother, is my cousin Frank. He is my mom's youngest brother's son. We talk every day. He will give me the shirt off his back. He gives me advice. He makes fun of me. He tells me when I'm being a bitch, kind of like I do to you. And there's no beating around the bush with him. He's a great dad. He's a successful man. If you need to, he's great at sales, great at everything. Better basketball player than me, even though I hate to admit it. Better basketball player than most, and he's kind of like Tim Duncan in basketball. He played, in high school where you went to school, and he played in college. He's in his college Hall of Fame because he's just a fundamental basketball player, and I hated it because he would do this. He would look so stupid out there on the court with his fucking fundamental layups all the time. And but he got it done. Rebounding, he was a beast in the paint. But I respect the ever living hell out of him. And he'd give me the shirt off his back, and I would do the same for him. And then another one here that I respect him. Sometimes we butt heads, but I respect the heck out of my father-in-law. My Andine's father is the biggest pain in my ass sometimes, but he's also he is so good. I can never listen. He created my wife. You couldn't ask for a better grandfather to my kids. He's there for my children at every waking, every beck and call, waking moment. He's there. And I'll tell you, there's not a tougher, more hardworking guy that I've ever met than my father-in-law, and I respect him for that. He's hard on my kids, which a lot of grandparents aren't, and that's one thing that I respect about him. He's not afraid to tell my kids to knock it off. He's not afraid to tell my kids you're being an idiot. He's not afraid to give them tough love. And I respect that because most grandparents, they're all they are is about vacations and money and gifts and everything else. And he's not. He's there for all that more than anybody is with my kids. But he's also there to give them realistic, honest feedback and criticism and everything in between and praise when he needs to. So my father-in-law is on that list. And then I just respect the hell out of anybody, maybe not trust because I don't know a lot of them, but any dad out there that's crushing it, being a provider for your family, loving on your wife and your kids, and being there and being at sporting events and being at dance recitals and concerts and you name it, being there for a 2 a.m. phone call for your 22-year-old daughter in the middle of the night, whatever. If you're a dad and you're deep down inside you're a good dad, then you have my respect. That's a fact.
Yeah, and I think neither of us put this person on our list, but I think we need to. And I didn't put it on mine because I thought it went without saying. But our wives are, two people that we trust and respect, obviously, more than probably anybody who support us and our crazy ideas and the things that we want to do, like start this podcast and that sort of thing, and just support us with the different things that we do in our lives. So without them, life would be completely different and unrecognizable. So I had to throw that in there too.
Yeah, no, hats off to Casey, hats off to Andine. Listen, they birthed our children, man. That there's a bond right there that can never be broken, can never be changed. She gave me the 3 greatest gifts that God could ever bestowed and blessed upon me and my family. And that's Madison, Caroline, and Finley. My wife's the rock, dude. She is tough as nails. Yeah, and same with Casey. I know Casey's great, and yeah, it goes without saying to have them on the list. Moving on. Favorite ways that we like to tune out. You put these notes in there, the words tune out. So tune out meaning.
Yeah, life can get so busy sometimes, right? We have so many things going on, work, these different things. Like for at least in my world right now, like things have been wild for a while. And every once in a while, I like to just just veg. But I like to call it tune out. Just tune out from everything else that's going on, and just do something for yourself, whatever that may be. So I came up with a list. There's 5. There's probably a few more, but these are the 5 that really stuck out to me. The first is just hanging with the kids, whatever that is. When I got home last week, Bryce and I went out and we were playing catch out in the cul-de-sac with the football. He comes up with these games in his head, and we got down markers and touchdown. We got end zones and things. So him and I played for, God, it felt like 2 hours, and it was just so much fun. Just kind of seeing the joy in him and doing that. It was awesome. Going to the movies with the kids. You know how I am with the movies. I love it. We went and saw Lyle Crocodile last week, and it was awesome. It was what we did on my 1 day home before I had to ship back out again. So, doing those types of things is great. You got me turned on to this. Like, if I'm in the mood to just laugh and just not think about anything, I'll flip on Impractical Jokers. It's one of my favorite shows. The kids watch it with me. Casey watches it. Like, we all just kind of sit and laugh at it. We watch rerun after rerun. We've seen them 50 times at this point. But God, it's one of those things you can just laugh at it because it's dumb. It's funny. People aren't getting offended and shit. Like, it's just great. The next one for me.
And they say offensive shit, and that's what makes it great.
Yeah, they do. Oh, yeah, they do. But you know what? It's this weird pocket that, like, they don't get the flack, and I'm so grateful for it because their shit is so funny and just makes me laugh over and over again, which is great. I also love flipping on ridiculousness. It's just videos that they pulled from the internet of people doing the dumbest shit. And it's just so funny because you laugh at, God, that had to hurt, or why would you do that? Like, it's just funny, and you just think about nothing, which is cool. The other thing I like to do is I like to read. I like to pick up a book and read a book. That really kind of calms me down before I go to sleep at night. That's one of the things I love to do before I go to sleep because it just kind of decompresses me and allows me to not look at, screens and things like that. And then the last is just get outside, go for a walk or a run, get some fresh air, feel that sunshine. So those for me are all things that I do to kind of just reset myself and tune out.
I like all of them. Obviously, kids, being with the kids, being with the girls, number one. Number two, that's number one. And then after this, I mean, for me, it's pretty simple. If you guys know me, long cardio. Anything that takes a long time and that is hard. So that means running 20 miles or rucking 10 miles or getting up at 3 a.m. to do something dumb. Any kind of strenuous, long cardio is my thing. That's my favorite way to clear my head. It's when I'm best, believe it or not. If I've said this before, I'm pretty sure, but if you need to make an important phone call or you need to call a customer with some not great news if you're in sales, go do some sort of exercise right before you make that phone call. Because I promise you, it will go way better. The conversation will go. Because it gives you the flush of emotion. It cleans everything out. You're clear-headed. You're level-headed. You're juiced up. If you have an important decision, important phone call, important anything to do, go exercise first. If that means picking up your weights and pumping a little iron, go for a short little run, get outside, throw on your weight vest, anything, that's the best way to clear my mind. And I just think better when I'm, everything's rolling and everything's moving. Going outside kind of ties into that. Just go outside. I say it every day. If you follow me on Instagram, every day I post a picture in the morning that says, go outside. Go outside. You cannot be in Mother Nature. There's no more calming, better feeling in the world to clear your head, to just get away from things. Find a quiet spot and do some visualization. It's amazing what Mother Nature can do for you. And you gain so much more out of Mother Nature than you get, way more than you give. Now, you can give to Mother Nature by cleaning up the environment and picking up trash on the side of the road, but she gives so much more than we give her. And then the other thing that I've been doing more recently, if I really need to clear my head and just get away, I get rid of my phone, which is crazy to think about. We live on our freaking cell phones. And when I say get away from my phone, it means I leave it inside. This morning on my ruck for the first 2 hours, when I was outside with the dog, I left my phone inside. I had a missed call from Dave, Carp. I had all these missed calls. Guess what, though? When I was out there in the moment, I was thinking about running, weight vest on, the dog, and I wasn't thinking about anything else. And then I came back in and I saw the missed calls, and guess what? Dave tells me this all the time. When you put your phone away for 6 hours, the world's most likely not going to end. It's going to be fine. And that's something that Dave has said to me before. And to take it a step further with putting away your phone, get off your social medias. If you're going to put your phone away, or if you don't put your phone away, just don't go on social media for half a day. Do a whole day. I've said this on other podcasts before. Just get out of your Instagram app, your Facebook app, your Twitter app, and just get away from it. And if that means you have to put your phone somewhere, then do that. But just, you really want to clear your head. This thing right here, as we record on this podcast, oh, look, there's Finley. Get rid of it. Just put it away. Hide it. The world's not going to end. And if it does, you having your phone wasn't going to change the world from ending anyways.
Couldn't be more true.
So that is that with our list. We've had all good ones. Please check out episode 31. Share it. Check out this episode. Share it if you like it. Send feedback. Actually, Dave, did we mention this on the podcast last week? I actually got some feedback from somebody that I know who was commenting on our numbers segment, our athletes numbers section, and I was given some criticism that number 28, I'm pretty sure it was, I did not include Adrian Peterson, which I thought we did. Adrian Peterson, obviously a great running back. So, but that's great, guys. That means you're listening, and that's what we really want. So if you got criticism for something we missed or messed up on, or something you like or don't like, please reach out to us and let us know. And keep sharing the show and keep telling people about it. We have so much fun doing this, and we love doing it. So, book recommendation, Dave, is coming from me today.
It is. Let's hear it.
The book recommendation today is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, a counterintuitive approach to living a good life. It is a bright orange book. Mark Manson writes it. He became pretty relatively well known from his blog that he had. This is a good book. It's not everyone's cup of tea. It's very vulgar. There's lots of swears in it. Obviously, you can tell by the cover, the F-bomb on the cover. But what I got from this book in a nutshell is this. Stop caring about what other people think, all right? You're not, you have to learn to be more realistic with yourself, and you have to be okay with that. Not everything is hunky-dory. Not everybody's happy and positive all the time. Not everybody's going to be, if you're an athlete, you're not going to be a pro athlete. It's okay. Learn to live with what you have and be good with that, because you don't catch all the breaks. Not everything's going to go your way. It's a very honest, realistic book. And stop trying to keep up with the Joneses. It doesn't say that in the book, but when you stop giving a fuck about what other people think of you, your life changes. I promise you. When you stop caring about what everybody thinks about you, you want to keep up with the Joneses. We talk about it a lot. Ramsey talks about it a lot. When you give up that care of what everybody thinks about you, your life changes drastically for the better. So, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. Go out, read it. It's good. It's an interesting read. It's a little different from what, maybe I usually recommend. But listen, that's why we read books, right? We read them to find out if we like them or we don't like them. But it's a realistic kind of, not a program. It's just kind of, so you think outside the box. Let's put it that way.
Sounds like a great book. Sounds like something I need to read.
Yeah, so you go read it.
Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Listen, Dave gave us the book recommendation of Ramsey's book a couple weeks ago, and guess what? I read 45 pages in this morning. I'm like 60 pages in. I just went and got it from the library because I'm like, hey, you got to sharpen up a little bit. But yeah, so that's episode 32. Thank you for listening. My only advice before Dave closes out the show: go outside today. All right, I'll echo what I put on Instagram every day. Go outside. Even if it's for freaking 30 minutes, go outside today.
Yeah, something's better than nothing, that's for sure. Everybody, we hope you enjoyed this show, episode 32. We had a lot of fun with it. If you like the show, get out there, share, comment, get it in front of as many fathers as possible. We look forward to talking to you again really soon. Get out, have some fun with your friends. Episode 33 is coming soon. It's a Halloween episode, so get yourselves ready. Talk to you soon.